we can kind of get started. We're going to be here for a while, but you know, as long as everybody wants us to be here, but we can kind of get started. This has gone through a couple of iterations. We first came in this room, this has probably been 2 months ago that we presented this to you, and it's changed quite a bit since then. The density was always less dense than the one that's already been approved down kind of next door. And just to kind of acclimate everybody, I guess Max is here. This is the David Weekly project, is these parcels here, Ideal Way is here, and then this project is all the remaining ones down. A few things to note from what we heard from you, from previous discussions from folks, is obviously trees are a big issue. We've heard concerns with how, facing, we want to try to get as many units facing front versus facing side, or side facing the road. We've actually, so the last revision of this had another row of townhouses here, and they were back to back that way. So we've actually changed it now. We actually also, this is now all open space. We kind of shifted everything up. So they kind of flip-flopped a little bit. So there's one less row this way, so there's one less unit that's side facing, and we have more units this way that are facing front. The other thing that we did in kind of our new layout is we kind of pushed things back this way, which actually allowed us to create more of a tree save area here and here. Now, when we say tree save, that's the technical term for the cities. There's an acreage requirement you have to have. That doesn't mean we're saving every tree in there. That means that's the area where the canopy, basically, you're measuring where you wouldn't, you'd either plant or save. And some of the other comments we heard during some other discussions were related to the existing trees, what ones could we save and which ones couldn't we. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to keep any of them. We've got some, I got some pictures as well, just kind of help orientate everybody to.
Yes, basically, you guys see this highlighted trees here in this corner, this area here, I think we're able to save 3.
Yeah. So there's an 18-inch beech tree right here. There's a 14-inch beech like right here, and then right here is a pretty good sized 38-inch that's caliper wide spruce. So those are all being saved, which is pretty important. And then there are a few others over here. Then there's one that's a real big oak. It's like 50-inch caliper. That we say possible because we think we can probably keep it. I think it's somewhere over here. We think we can keep it, but the challenge would be, will the city let us do it? Because we'd have to route the sidewalk around it, which is fine with us. It's just a matter of will the city let us do it. I would think they probably will. When you deal with the city, you've got every different department's got their own perspective on things. And planning has one view and urban forestry has another and so forth. So
CDOT has another one where they want the sidewalk a certain distance behind the pavement and all this.
some of the things we've included in here are...
So just a question on the trees.
Sure.
So with the redesign, appreciate you taking the feedback on
Sure.
trees, but basically you're giving us 3, maybe 4 trees?
Well, that's what we're saving. These are all, so you'll have all in here, you'll have planted trees here and here. All along here will be street trees, and we're saving some in here. And then where we can't save, we're going to plant.
What size will those be?
We've got to do a certain, you guys have a certain ones that you typically plant.
Yeah, the planting trees, they'll probably be at least 2.5-inch caliper to 3-inch caliper to go in. They'll probably be around 12 foot tall, typically. So it's a good sized tree to begin with.
Nothing new like we have now.
Yeah, not like we have.
Yeah, we
100-foot
can't-
tall trees right
we
now.
can't replant.
So there's a
That's
whole
like
canopy
this
of trees that
comparison.
goes over the street over Marshall Place, and we're getting rid of all those.
Yeah.
And including that huge giant oak that's like right dead center.
Yeah.
Well, there is a pretty good, well, not the oak there, but there's a pretty good sized oak that's over here that we're going to try to save. So yeah, it is definitely.
That's what our neighborhood is known for, is our trees. And you're pretty much leveling them.
Yeah. Well, and to qualify, I think some of our comments earlier, it was not necessarily the trees alone, standalone, but rather, what could your project accommodate in regards to the canopy, specifically on Marshall?
I think the new trees you're planting was sufficient, if anything, it'd be better, it would be in line. I like the proposal you got.
I mean, the street trees will be, some of these trees in here are, they're there and they're bigger, but some of them aren't as healthy either. So even if we can save some of them, we're gonna have to talk to everyone forestry and the arborists to see if they're worth saving as well, because some of them just aren't healthy. But some of them are good size. So, I mean, it's not that we want to take down a tree and have to plant one back if we don't need to. We certainly don't want to.
I like the design of it being going down the street as you propose.
Well, and that's what it will give the canopy. It won't be on day one, but it'll be eventually. It'll give the canopy on.
Can we understand the timeline a little? Can we understand the timeline a little bit, though? I believe, you know, you mentioned some of this is build as sold. So would all of the trees 100% be in the design from basically prior to selling one individual unit, or would it be as it progresses over time?
Yeah, the perimeter landscape, so all the trees you see around the edge, and obviously the ones we saved, we'll put that in the beginning, because that'll be part of the streetscape.
Gotcha.
And then the stuff interior, so as every unit gets built, there's a landscape package that goes with each building.
Okay.
So that'll be installed while as a building is being finished.
Okay. And so just so we can get I guess, kind of a high level view, what will it look like as we're going through this build as sold timeline? So what would the property, what else? You said there's some landscaping pieces?
Once this gets developed, then we have these
Let's
alleys
just go
and
back
basically
and
we'll
we'll have
have
that day one. I mean, like, see, timeline.
Yeah, it's an idea. I guess the concept, what was new to us, I think, at the last meeting was there's a timeline to this. And so we're trying to just understand as it rolls out, you know, day one, what would be here from the design, what wouldn't, you know, and how it would grow over time. So, you know.
So that's what I was getting at.
Yeah,
Day
sorry.
one is we would clear and then grade and then install these roadways, and then we would stabilize the interior of the site with seeding and straw and get that to green up and grow. We build a model building, don't know which one it's gonna be, but we would build a unit, not a single unit, but a building that would house a model unit in it that we could sell from. And then as we sell the individual buildings, we would build.
But as we're grading and you're putting in all the infrastructure, you're going to put in, you know, at some point in
Exactly, the
that-
streetscape surrounding, that's towards the end of the phase of development, it's about a 7-8 month development phase. So towards the end of that, we'll do all the off-site improvements, which is the parking, streetscape, sidewalks, all that good stuff.
What if somebody wants to buy 3 and the next person wants to buy 36?
Well,
We'll release them based on the, based on building, so we won't just release the entire site at once. We'll come up with a construction sequence, and let's say, I'm just hypothetically here, so don't take this for verbatim, but let's say we build a model here, and these are for sale, and we'll release maybe this building and this building for sale. So you can't go buy 35 and 8 at the same time. Does that make sense?
Can I continue a little further on that? So would it, just to understand, you know, what middle ground we maybe would find with this, is there any consideration of possibly the demolition also being scaled out as opposed to all at one time, so that we can avoid a little bit of that patch of red clay for quite some period?
Typically, a site this small, it wouldn't be feasible to do in phases, because it's such a small area. That for grading purposes and installation of utilities and all that, and drainage, we'd have to do it all at once.
Yeah.
And if you did, the demolition happening in a short period of time actually lessens the inconvenience of the noise or, you know, whatever else would occur.
Yeah, but we have a noise barrier now.
Yes, we're gonna look at South Boulevard in
Yeah.
a slab of concrete
And-
from our front door.
And truth be said, I think part of what it is we're a little anxious about some of the cycles we've been through with the real estate market recently, right? So we're just trying to think of how could we find a common ground to where, let's say there's a surprise on the market, there's a pullback, we're not left with, for 10 years, a plot of clay. You know, so the idea of scaling it out over a little bit of time, you know, it would almost feel like it would reduce the risk as a neighborhood of should there be any sort of a change in the market, you know, to this falling apart. So.
Well, I think, you know, some of the things that you're going to see, you won't see, you know, as these get planted early on, that's essentially somewhat of a buffer, you know, from, you know, you're going to have year end here, so you won't be, you know, there'll be some visual buffers between, you know, from years.
So you're saying 6 to 8 months for the build?
7 to 8 months for the land development side of it, so that's the clearing, grading, utilities, installations. Each building will take us about 3.5, 4 months to build.
Awesome, because I live right across the street from there. That's gonna be, what, 2 years, year and a half, 2
You
years?
said 3 years, best
3
case
years.
scenario last time.
3 years.
3 years
No,
construction of my front yard,
Well, from,
Not the home building, it wouldn't be 3 years,
but from day one,
From
it
when
could
we
be up to
start.
but from
3
today,
years.
probably, depending on the process.
Awesome.
So
there been any kind of evaluation, I don't know if the investors are represented here, but is there some determination that single-family homes don't make sense for the site?
We are, I'm with Pulte, so yeah, we're the developer builder here if it works out. We have looked at it, we look at it as a transitional spot between the commercial and the residential. So putting the use of townhomes seems like usually a normal planning process of the different uses. So we have evaluated the viability of single family detached. Doesn't make any sense for this particular property. And for
I
us.
can tell you guys, for us,
I mean, we think it does make
It does.
Well, I mean, there's single family there now.
Financially, I just frankly, it just doesn't make sense mathematically on what you could sell as detached single family here and what it's gonna be, what it is on this side already. This is very nice, but this is not very nice.
Well, I mean,
It's
These are
a transitional.
you know as well as I think if we got mired in the economics of it, we'd probably be stuck here for some time. I think it's more a question of what it might not be viable for Pulte, but truth be said, there are always developers that would have a different framework in place that maybe would be, amenable to some of these
I can't
changes.
speak for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed the retaining pond's missing, so what, did we?
When we moved that up, that was gonna be some kind of a stormwater detention that we're gonna do there. We're probably gonna do underground, in the alleys, instead. We're gonna have to do some kind of, no matter what, we have to do some kind of stormwater detention.
Gotcha.
And it's a matter of how we do it. So this will be more open space and tree save. We may try to do some detention in there. You really usually can't do it with the trees. So we're probably gonna do it under the alleys.
So that would replace what you had as a.
I mean, we didn't have that big a spot before either, and that might have had some underground with it as well.
So you're not going for like any kind of mitigation?
I think we're gonna have to, I don't think we can't get a buyout for the stormwater, so we're gonna have to do.
It'd be underground detention, some filtration.
So there won't be standing water in that area, is that what you're saying? It won't be a
Correct,
wet
yeah, there won't be.
pond.
At one point, we thought that, and even with that, it probably wasn't a big enough area that would have been standing water anyway. We probably more would have been a detention that would have held it for a day or so while it drains out. But now, all that will be underground.
And you're pretty firm with that. So in other words, I just want to understand the modification from the previous plan to
Yeah.
this one. It's gone, nothing surface level. Is really the intention with the plan?
Yeah,
Or is
we
it,
would- we
or
would
is that
like
kind of
that
like a
surface
flux
level.
area
It's-
that might change again?
Underground detention is not easy to maintain, but it's this actually, we need this to get the tree safe numbers. The city will require a certain percentage, a certain acreage of tree safe.
Okay.
Meaning plantings and canopy and so forth, and so we have to, so that will be dedicated.
But to your point earlier, that tree save is not the existing canopy. It is new trees.
That's right.
It's save or new trees. It's
Is
a save of canopy is what it is, and it's future canopy also.
Is the issue with saving the trees a grading issue, or is it the location of the building issue? I mean, like, to me, the huge oak kind of right in the middle of the triangle, if we rotated the building on Marshall, parallel with Marshall, you would be able to save that huge oak if the grading wasn't an issue.
It's not so much the grading, it's just when you've got those big trees, it's not just the caliper of the tree, you've got to extend out away from the canopy, the root system. It eats up.
I mean, something like that would make the
Slow
whole
this
thing
guy down,
more
get rid
attractive.
of the tree save here.
What's that?
So if we tilt this guy back down like that, we get rid of this tree save here, which.
Yeah, but there aren't
Tilt
trees,
that
there
back,
aren't really
we'll
any
have trees there.
savable trees there, so seems like there's opportunity for inside of the site to save some big trees.
And the way that's designed is I guess it's technically street facing, we have more units, obviously a concern because I will be looking at the size of some of these units, but, it doesn't sit like the rest of the homes where we are pretty square to the street. It's kind of a.
Well, it is because it's got that awkward, these parcels do have that awkward shape to them.
So you're saying it's awkward.
I mean, originally we had.
We agree with
This pocket park in here, do you remember that? You guys remember originally we had this pocket park in here and this was pushed against the street? So we got feedback from you guys that trees were important and we understand that, so the thought of doing this and either keeping three or four trees in here and adding trees would be nicer than not having any trees except for the street trees there.
We also
So we
gave
took your
feedback
feedback
that we
into
wanted all the
consideration.
homes to be facing us, and there's still 3 rows there that I'll be looking at inside of the town.
Yeah, and we talked about that last time too, that it ends up being just a
Financial.
equation.
You
Like,
realize
just
how
just can't get it.
negative that is for us, to look out my front door, and see a huge thing. This is, you know, you were talking about, oh, you're tearing down old stuff. Well, this is an intrusion into our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it feels like.
Mhm.
And the stuff at the bottom of the street, yeah, that's kind of a buffer transitional. You are coming into single-family neighborhood and putting up this huge thing, and it's just so disappointing and disheartening for all of us.
So part of, you know, to not misrepresent, I think, some of the outcome from our previous meeting, you know, thank you for at least having some consideration to the trees. I think that's obviously very important for us on the property, but let that not be misunderstood as, you know, the overweight item. I think we had some other items that probably were more significant than just the trees. Part of which actually is the, you know, the three, I mean, if you look at it, they're not, you know, they're side facing, and so, I mean, would there be an exploration maybe of abandoning just maybe those two end units and creating more of a tree buffer? You know, just concession being, eliminate the ones that are just the side facing and
Well, I mean, I
do
think
more
you're
of a
gonna
build
see
out.
quite a few, I mean, this is all a tree save area here, you're gonna have plantings here and here, so you're gonna, you're not gonna have a full straight-on view of the side of those units. And this might be worthwhile since we haven't done it yet. The first version of the renderings we had were all brick and stone, and this has been redone to, one thing that's different from this and what would actually be the case, these are backloaded units, their garages are in the back, whereas this rendering has them in front. Because Pulte is basically was taking their whole model and basically redesigning it to try to accommodate, making it fit more with the neighborhood. So we went from brick and stone to siding, a lot more of a roof line.
Is that vinyl siding?
Siding
No.
or-
No, sir.
It still doesn't
It'd be
face
some
the
access
neighborhood.
board. And it's hard to see from there, so I welcome you guys to come up and take a look at it.
Sure.
Basically, it's
Actually, yeah, let me,
brick on the base
Well, I mean, we
floor.
had brick before and we got pushed back.
Right, it's not the style of the neighborhood.
so is that the ceramic kind of siding? or-
It's the cemented siding, so,
Okay.
yeah. I would say it'd be hardy. Like
Which
the
would be
hardy plank.
fairly, I mean, I would think that would be similar to where a lot of the style is.
So the siding aside, using too many words here at the same time, but this is the side view.
Yes, so,
Okay.
windows, shutters, did some vertical siding with the horizontal siding to break up the elevation. I didn't get it on here, but I'm planning on doing a ridge vent item up here
Okay, sure.
on these peaks, so it'll break up the side elevation.
Would you want to
Originally, the one we
spend-
showed you was just a brick.
Would you want to spend the rest of your life looking out of your front porch at that?
Yeah, that's
I mean,
the problem.
yeah, you have houses on the other side of the street that are going for $750,000, and this is a view that they have. Where instead they could have had a single-family home, but if we give it time, it will come. And I get that.
It could,
It's
and
all
where it might
possible
not,
for you
it's.
guys, but this is our livelihood, this is our
Understood.
neighborhood, this is where we live, this is where we're growing our families. So we're a little passionate about that.
Sure.
And part of I think what we, as residents of that area, we look to things like the Dilworth land use and some of the other neighboring houses as a plan before we buy. This abandons a lot of the different framework that's in place currently. So we're just trying to figure out if there is that abandonment, what's the concession that we would see in place? You know, whether it be helping our property values, and therefore tax value for the city,
Yeah, that's my
or
question. Will this, being on this side of Marshall Place, with the homes on this side of Marshall Place, with the value raised, with the value of the homes raised or lower?
I can't speak for that, but
I mean, he should.
from what's there today to what would be there if we
Yeah,
did
that's-
this,
that's my
I think it'd be an improvement.
Yeah,
That's
these
my
are $400,000 or
personal opinion.
$500,000 units
You guys
going
can-
up, so.
There's no way that's.
But there's two $700,000 units that just went up in the last 6 months. So if you look at the dense, so part of what let's set the framework the right way. If we look at the density of build that's happened in the last 2 years, it's astronomical. So it's fair to assume, it's not to say that this little block here will stay underdeveloped and, we're not gonna have any developer walk in there. If you look at the trend, realistically, we can project that there would be houses on this 5 years out. So we're just trying to simply
If the sellers
understand,
are willing to sell the property individually
With
or
lawns and
package, but
trees.
to other people.
So we're trying to understand a little bit. I mean, we recognize, you have a plan in place. I mean, truth be said, I think a lot of us are just trying to find the common ground that, between all of us. And the side view, I think, can you flip to the other side real quick? So looking at the, how much of a buffer would it be, right? How much space is that? Right here, between number 33.
Here, it's probably 14 feet, I think it's 14 feet from the back curb to the property is what it is. So from here, yeah, you've got basically This is an 8-foot planting strip, this is a 6-foot sidewalk, and then you've got another probably 8 feet here.
How far back are the houses now that are there?
And they vary. Yeah.
This would be
Why
pretty
can't you just
significant
flip them
closer.
and do two strips along the side with the one front facing and the
Yeah, we've
other?
looked at that,
And then you can save the
we
old
actually end up
middle.
losing a lot of units when that happens. So we've definitely analyzed it, the way the property kind of pinches down.
We're okay with that.
Can't, yeah, I understand.
What's for Dilworth, what's the units per acre?
Oh, I don't know. Someone in the audience probably knows
Well,
that
I mean,
better.
this is an example, this was rezoned at 22 units per acre, and this is somewhere around 17 acres.
Well, the thing is, we're in
Actually,
R5.
less than that.
We're in R5
Yeah,
neighborhood.
yeah.
It's right now, this is right now, this is an R5, and these are commercial.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with the one that got rezoned down at the far end is they rezoned it on the basis it was similar to New Bern Station. New Bern Station is surrounded by commercial properties.
Right.
There isn't a single residential family house anywhere near.
And technically, these are in the New Bern Station plan, but this is all in the Dilworth area plan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much objection to rezoning on that part that's currently commercial.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, you just can't, you can't carve out, because you wouldn't get much in terms of townhouses. So, I mean, we certainly understand where you're coming from. I mean, to get back to that point too, when we try to flip these around, so, I mean, it would be easier and better if they were all in a row, but the awkward shape, but also, you just don't have enough room to get, the townhouse in there on both sides and have the outlet.
So what's the approximate height of these units?
They're 3-story, they found any other listed back here, but I want to say they're somewhere in the 38, 30-foot range.
How much on-street parking are you planning? How many spaces on Marshall and how many spaces on Avenue?
We actually have 12 here on Marshall, we have 9 on Atherton, and we have 4 on Euclid. Now, this is a little bit of a change from what we had before. We had a little bit more on-street parking before. We actually took some out so we'd have a little bit more room for trees. Also, if you look now, which is a little different, is most of the on-street parking is down here.
I don't get why there wouldn't be on-street parking all the way, because I don't see, oh, I see, you have a cut-in right there at the top of the letter M on Marshall Place.
Right, correct.
Looks like you widen the street.
Yeah, we kind of pulled everything down so we could fit
So there's no on-street parking for.
down this way. There's no.
Yeah.
Right.
So how many spaces are on Marshall?
There are 12 on Marshall.
And then how many on Atherton?
Atherton has 9. That was, we actually kind of came up with that as a balance from the trees and the on-street parking. Some of you were not in favor of on-street parking, some of you were. Some folks see it as a way to do some traffic calming. It's also a concern that with some of the, let's say Max is down here, the easier it is for on-street parking, people to kind of walk through here, they're going to park here, but the further away you get from there, the less likely they are going to be to park all the way there. It gets less advantageous for them, so.
And when you have one in Euclid, it looks like you have 3 spaces on it.
Euclid has 4.
4 spaces.
So you have less than one on-street space for every unit.
Right, but I don't think actually.
These are 2-car garage.
2-car garage on every unit, so we aren't actually required by parking wise for the units to have.
But if I go visit someone
Right.
who probably is a 2-car couple,
Right.
I have less than 1 per unit.
Plus you have the driveways. The driveways for the units. You have the 2-car garage plus a driveway going into it.
So
So
you
then
actually
it's-
have their inside and I
Is the
can
on-street parking required?
It is encouraged by planning. Planning has wanted to see it. The city planning staff has wanted to see it. We had more in the last round of this, so we actually.
Would it be possible to add them onto the Euclid side and take them way off of Marshall and Atherton? I mean, if you're saying that, the overflow parking from Max or from that commercial area would most likely be over there,
Yeah.
I think it makes the most sense to put it over there rather than having a line of cars parked on a residential street.
The reason we did it, we took some away here, was to try to give some more room for more trees, more of a buffer, more landscaping
Yeah, but I think we'd rather see the buffer and the landscaping on Marshall than we would on Euclid.
Where's the?
Well, it comes on both, you end up getting it on both sides.
Scott, where's the additional buffer on Marshall?
Well, we have bigger areas here.
No, but down there where unit number 33 is, you said that was only 14 feet to back of curb.
Right.
So you're at, you couldn't make it narrower than that. You're at the minimum allowed back of curb distance to the building site if you're at 14 feet, so you couldn't have added more.
Well, 14 inches
Buffer.
would be in the back of the sidewalk there.
Not.
Then we've got more distance from the sidewalk to.
Oh, it's 14 feet to the back. Oh,
Yeah, it's really more like
Scott
20,
said
yeah.
it was from the back of the curb.
Well, yeah, I mean, back, it's actually, well, back of this curb of the sidewalk, really, it's really not curb, it's sidewalk. So you got 8-foot planting strip, 6-foot sidewalk, plus another 14 feet there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really more like 28 feet. So this is, as some of you, I know I recognize some of you from the last couple, the first 2 iterations we did, and I know that it's changed a fair amount to try to accommodate some of the comments.
Well, hold on real quick. It's changed a fair amount. Not a single unit was eliminated. Nothing was put street facing. All we've really done is dress it up with some extra trees. So candidly, I don't think much was done.
Well, the version you saw, we had been to Dilworth Community, DCDA, 2 times before that.
Well,
But to his point, what we're saying is our biggest complaints were 1, the number of units, and 2, the side facing. And neither one of our big units, and then probably the third one's the design.
Well, we took out an entire row. There was a whole other row here, which would have had one more side, one more unit facing. The last version had a whole other row here.
But we still have side
wait,
units.
did you move those units or did they?
We ended up there, if you remember the last one, there was like an alleyway that kind of did a thing here, and they were squished out there. So.
But it's the same amount of units, right?
Same amount of units. We put a row here.
Okay.
And there's a couple more facing this way.
So you relocated,
You've got more
just to be
front facing
clear.
this way. You've got 1 less side facing, and you've got more trees in front.
Okay, so not.
The density is now 17?
I think it's actually, well, I think it's more like 13.
That's what I thought.
It's the same, it hasn't changed.
I think the difficulty remains where I think we're a neighborhood of single-family homes that face the street, and this is an apartment complex.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we had more apartments over here and stuff, could come in and drop.
Well, there are 400+ townhomes, so it's not necessarily an apartment complex.
I understand that they face the street. If you drive through Dilworth, and you won't find very many places ever that something that faces the street, and that's just what a single-family residential neighborhood expects.
I mean, I bought my house on that corner last year, and I preferred to look at the single-family home that's there, even though it may be older and have tenants. I mean, I still chose that versus buying a house that looked at town.
To address the earlier question, so will it increase your property values? From what it has today, as a realtor, yes, it will increase your property values short term. Long term, they're not gonna wanna move into a house that goes to the side. We will have lower property values on our end of the street than deeper in the neighborhood because that's the reality.
I think all right. So speaking to her point right here, as far as value, let's be realistic. Who are we competing with here? We're competing with Tremont has some dense units there located. All near that Lowe's area, there's a bunch of properties that have gone up. So, I think all of us have done the exercise of stepping back and saying, all right, I'm a buyer. We want the best buyer in our neighborhood so that property values go up, right? So look at those properties and what you'll find is there's some sacrifice for unit density for volume. So in other words, you're getting a lot of pop-outs, pop-ins. They're all scattered. It does not look like rows of houses on, what I thought happened in the 80s. And now we're getting it all over again in our neighborhood. And so, it's not just the issue with this, it's rather, who are we competing with now so that you can actually achieve your targets of building in 3 years? We're competing with what's right around the corner. So take your project and compare it to what's right around the corner and you realize we're losing. And so that's the thing, we're gonna have every other unit that is near us driving distance, if they pick Dilworth, they're gonna buy every other one. We're gonna get the scraps and they're gonna move into this. I think the challenge is you're so set on the density of these units. You've got to have 37, and they've got to be in straight rows.
Well, let's just talk about the density. If we got rid of 3 units, they're still going to be side facing, no matter what.
Yeah.
You're going to have side facing. The density doesn't matter.
You will
You're gonna have
not
signs.
get
Completely
that.
unacceptable what else.
But you know what? Other developments are not like that in the neighborhood. So my point is very clear. You're not moving with that, and I get it. But the buyer's going to go somewhere else. We're going to get the worst of the two buyers. So that's what happens to our property value.
I mean, I can't speak for Pulte, but I think if they've evaluated this property, they're putting a lot of capital into this to do the development. If they didn't think they had buyers at a certain price point, they wouldn't do the deal.
Right? No, there's a difference between buyers of any price point. The idea is there's the suggestion that you're entitled to the property. Our view is we want the best people to move into this property. We want the best homeowners, and we want it to be all the right people.
I also know if I had 400 grand to spend on a townhouse, I certainly would not buy one that backs up to max, that has live bands a couple nights a week. I mean, there's, those end ones are gonna be really difficult. And that is just I can hear it at my house, which is Atherton, right at the corner of Atherton and Marshall. So I would not spend the money on that unit in a million years. And that's another thing with the canopy, though. What the canopy is doing for us as a community and a neighborhood, yeah, we live near South Boulevard. Very aware of that. We hear the sirens, we hear the cars, we hear the traffic, we hear auto bell. But at the end of the day, without that canopy, it's going to be that much louder. I mean, that's
Invisible.
That goes to my point earlier. If you all are thinking you're coming in and, building on, it's almost like you're talking like, oh, we're just building on, a new place. But you're taking our residential, single-family neighborhood and turning it into this, which is why we have such a heartache. And like what you were talking about, it's not like you're, living in an apartment complex now. It's like you're living on a residential street. You have a canopy, you have the buffer, and you're just taking all that away from us.
Well, I will say one thing we've talked about before is the houses that are in there now are almost all, or they all are renters. They're all rental properties. The people who would buy in here are people who are going to be, they're going to be buying homes. They're not going to be renting. They are going to be, living here and starting families here. And
Have you contemplated what you're going to put in the declaration regarding renters?
no, but that's the goal. Is that they're not going to be Pulte's on.
We're out of the rental business, we're for sale business.
But
We don't
you can
restrict-
put something in, the declaration that would restrict the homeowners from renting out the homes though, correct?
You could, we don't plan on doing that, but you could.
So then technically all this could be renters.
Yeah, but that's not a likelihood of somebody spending that kind of money to rent.
reality is they would be more,
Reality would
have
be
more
more
money to rent than what's there now. But it's our little, I don't know, it's just our little corner of the universe. And we've made homes there, we've built our lives there, and the trees. I'm not gonna walk away from the trees. That is a huge part of why I spent the money to live where I live, and I've been there for 9 years.
Now, one other no-build scenario, if someone came in and started building a single family, they can take down some of those trees to build a single family by right.
They'll do it selectively though, and
Yes.
they know,
Don't care about it.
they know the big trees retain their property value and enhance their property value. They're not gonna chop down the biggest tree on the block in their backyard, which is exactly what you're talking about.
If you look at, I would say it's a good comparison, Plaza Midwood, where you've got some of the people that have bought small homes and built homes 3 times the size. They kept trees in some cases they didn't.
I completely disagree with you. Dilworth is not Plaza Midwood. That's nothing bad for Plaza Midwood, but Dilworth has kind of a history of the trees. And we have a land use plan, and you're just completely disregarding that.
It's too much. It's
Yeah,
just
so can we go back
way
to
too
the
much.
question that I think we've asked like 3 times? So the 3 side-facing units at the end, why can we not get rid of 2, flip 1 so it's facing the street?
If you flip them,
Or
there's
get rid of
not,
all 3? I mean,
there is not enough distance between here and here. At best, you would have units, you're looking at the back of units. You'd be looking at garages at best.
Can
if
you
did that.
create 3 unique units that flip around so everything else is facing this way, but those 3 end units are facing Marshall?
You know what Scott's saying is, once you take this unit and do this to it, it doesn't fit in here. So if you have a unit like that,
So you'd have to get rid of one.
it wouldn't work.
Well, it doesn't matter how many you get rid of, you can get rid of half of them.
Get rid of this, put 1 here.
Well, they're not gonna do that.
Money, right?
Well, why do
Yeah,
why do
right,
this
exactly.
project if?
Exactly.
Well, but
It's not the right project.
Right, it's it's not the right land for you guys.
There's plenty of,
Yeah, it's clearly not.
in
It's not a good
south.
I'm not opposed to something going there because, to your point, something is going to go there at some
Yes.
point. There's, I don't think any of us in here are naive enough to think that this is gonna stay the way it is. But I think at the end of the day, this is just way too much for our little tiny community.
It's not the right.
Yeah,
In
it's too
fairness,
early to
and
give up
I
the
understand-
Dilworth land use thing, putting single-family houses there. It's just, there's no reason to
I mean,
abandon
even if
that.
it is townhouses, if they're larger, if there's less
Like
density
the ones
to
at the
them,
end of the street, look, the
Yeah,
character, they're.
I will say this,
Craftsman.
again, to remind you, the density down here that's already been approved by city council that's much more dense than these units are.
But
You
it-
know,
but it
zoning
looks-
doesn't have anything, there's just not a precedent set with zoning. Everything's looked at individually.
Right.
So I don't think it's good to say, and
And
like
the
we said
way that-
earlier, this is residential, this is our neighborhood. That's kind of a little buffer area.
It's the
That's
corner of
different.
Ideal, it's a busy street that backs up to Euclid, it's a busy street. You're moving up our street, which is very residential, so we feel very differently about the density here than we do the density at the end of the street.
We heard
So
that.
stop comparing those two.
So I think obviously everybody's pushed a lot of stuff. Is there anything front of mind that maybe you're sort of thinking through right now that could be a modification that could maybe address some of these needs?
I think we've addressed a lot of the prior comments, and we're hearing similar comments, and I think we've gotten to the point where we feel like we've addressed the majority of the comments as best we could,
Okay.
without compromising loss of units, and I think you guys can understand that too on the business side.
I even understand the loss of units, why you're sticking firm on that, and we completely disagree on that. But even like the style, like if you flip it over, I mean, if you've driven through Dilworth, show me one other neighborhood or anything that looks like that. It's still like you guys are just taking this
Well, listen,
no, let me
it's hard
finish.
to-
So you're taking this mold and you're not taking any of the character of the neighborhood into account with any of this.
And
It's
some
like,
of the ones in front
it's
of
not
Midwood,
even that hard.
to use, I'm sorry, I'm gonna use the word Saucy Burbank, at least builds in the style of Dilworth and builds with the porches, with the
We've got,
pink.
it's hard to see, guys, and that's why I asked you
Well,
guys
it was
to come
up there
on.
earlier.
But there are porches on all the fronts
No,
of these
it's not
buildings.
it's not the
I think it's the
roofs,
big-
it's not the.
Big rectangle
It's not even ballpark.
basis is
Yeah,
not a
yeah,
problem.
right. I mean, that's
It's a big
suburban
three-story
design.
rectangle
So-
that's in
so
Still
like-
Creek and
Any
Valentine.
townhome community I've ever seen.
And these
anywhere.
townhomes are staggered a couple feet.
These
so it's
porches
not
are
just
full
flat
story off
out.
the ground.
I know.
They're not walk-up friendly. They're
Weird.
above the garage.
Yeah, there's porches here also in the front.
They're off the
Not
ground.
according to
They're
this-
not.
not according to this.
That's right, Scott mentioned earlier that
Like
these
that.
garages would be rear loaded, so this front would actually be windows. And the entry stairs would be turned
Yeah.
on the front of the units. So the garage is in the rear. So to your point, there is a porch over the driveway. And the garage would not be in the front like this. This would be windows and the stairs would be turned sideways. So it's a different front elevation than what I've got shown here.
But that's very different from like a rocking chair front porch, which is what most of them.
Well, I mean, in fairness, they are townhouses, they're not single family.
Man, look at the other townhouses in the neighborhood. I mean,
They've
they've
done
done like
a
this,
job,
they fit
yeah.
in with the neighborhood. It's like you guys are just like this big bullies coming in.
Well, those
You kinda throw your
townhouses
stuff
behind
down.
those that you guys mentioned, so as we went to look at them, and I drove through those, and then drove through the neighboring detached single family, it looked nothing like the the adjacent detached single family, so.
We can go for a drive and I'll show you.
Well, and there were, a lot of those didn't face the street either. I mean-
It's also a brick wall, there's a brick barrier. I mean, they have the brick wall across the street, they don't have any single-family homes facing them on that side of
That's
the
all
winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Would you,
It's
just
not
out of
like-
curiosity,
That is very different, no, it's different though, they have,
Yeah.
not all single-family homes back there, they have the apartments
Completely
turned into
different.
condos, so it's not the same.
is this better as an elevation than what we showed before as being brick and stone? I mean, there's, the roof lines are different, the
We can
porches
actually
are
draw
different.
this better, so you get a perspective of the porches and all that stuff. It's a two-dimensional drawing, so it's hard to visualize that.
I think that'd be helpful. I mean, yeah, whatever you can do, because I mean, you know, society has small little speed. I don't think any of us can really understand what that looks like.
To Scott's point, is this a road we want to go down, or is it brick and stone, the majority feedback? I mean, just trying to get feedback on that.
I think the focus is more on the population and the side facing than it is necessarily on the.
That's point three though. This is probably priority.
Point three, but if you want to understand feedback with this, I guess part of it really is, I mean, there's some commonality across the whole board there, you know, so there's, unlike anywhere else in Dilworth, the standout line of houses does not exist. So I think the workaround with Tremont and some of the others was they created a lot more volume towards the street and kind of break up that straight line. if that's something that can be introduced to your design element, not to say it would work, but it would at least address some of those challenges.
It is hard to see, but these are not all in line. They are staggered back and forth too, so you're not looking at one big.
They just don't have the bungalow craftsman style look
Yep.
that all of
Yeah.
Those are the words I was looking for. It looks like it's out of Still Creek or Valentine. It does not look like it belongs in Dilworth.
Which is, it would fall there.
And I hope you recognize, I mean, part of the challenge, I think, is once you let, it's like the crack in the dam. You know, the beauty of Dilworth is that there's not really been a crack in the dam. And so our fear is you let one thing like this that just decimates the design elements that exist in Dilworth, and, you know, you're going to see all these different corners of Dilworth get eaten up the same way.
Well, this wasn't a lot better than the stuff that just got approved, so I think it'll help.
I mean, it's a historic district at the end of the day.
The David Wiggins project.
Oh, the David Wiggins looks much better than this.
Oh, wow.
I think everyone in here would
Yes.
agree.
I thought that was more industrial looking.
No,
It's
it's
grass.
much more
It has a lot
craftsman.
more character.
Yeah, a whole lot
That's
more.
what it does.
Like, if you can make that look more like, yours look more like theirs, that would be an improvement.
Yeah, and actually,
Which-
email
which David
everybody
Wiggly?
to
Are
ask
there
if you
two
guys
in
were
the corner?
talking, because it's gonna
There's
feel
another one
look
right
really
behind
weird
that.
to have their
That's also
style
David Wiggly.
and then a completely different style.
No,
You guys
three
really
others.
should get together and talk about how
And
to
wait,
make
if
this.
those, if you're placed on the market at the same time, their stuff is on the market, there's no question which units are gonna sell
Yeah.
versus.
Yeah.
I don't think ours is
Oh.
like that.
That is a easy.
Just so that we can do our review a little bit after the fact, can you speak to just bullet out what the revisions were from our initial meeting? Just bullet it very quickly, what the initial revisions were that were done, so that we know we're looking at everything in whole?
Well, from the last
Yeah.
ones that you saw at the open house, there was a kind of a triangle driveway here with kind of a pocket park here that put things a lot closer to the road
Yep.
on Marshall. And everything was slid down a little bit more, so now there's actually much more of a gap between that product and this one. So you'll have tree save here, you've got tree save here, here, and here. We had not proposed to save any trees before, and we've now been able to, we know we can at least save those 3, and there are several more we think we might be able to save depending on what the city says. There was a unit facing this way, so you had 4 side units instead of 3, and so you've got more front-facing units than you had before. I think in general, you've just got a lot more landscaping and trees.
And the elevation revision we talked about.
Okay, well, I mean, it made it seem as if there were you incorporate a lot of feedback, and I just want to know, so we have trees, basically. Trees and a little less side-facing, so one less unit side-facing.
25% less.
Well, 1 unit, because if you look at Marshall, it'll be 1 unit, 1 row, so 1 unit less and trees.
And I mean, honestly, it doesn't
trees
matter,
and
if
maybe-
one unit's side facing, they might as well all be, it just looks terrible, it just ruins the character of the street.
I mean, honestly, I'm not sure you're gonna, I mean, it will be there, but there will be, the amount of trees that will be there, it's not like you'll be staring straight at it. There'll be trees straight between you and the line of sight.
3.5.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
You
Troy.
said the roof line's gonna be 36 feet tall, but the trees are only 12 feet tall.
The trees will grow.
Well, I mean, we need 15 years.
Guys, it's 50-100-year-old trees.
Takes a long time for trees to grow.
I think a concession would be just give us a fair, and I'm not in any way representing that this is an unfair, it's a top-down, so we can't really get a clear experience of what it's going to look like. If you can do a year 1, a year 2, and 3, what will we look at from Marshall? So, so we can look at the trees you're planting relative to the top of the side-facing unit.
And Atherton.
And Atherton. So just, I don't even, I don't want you guys to go too far with it. I just think we're really kind of putting these things in our mind, trying to understand what you're telling us, and I don't think we understand well enough. What would it look like on Marshall looking up and seeing the brand new tree with the peak of the side-facing unit? Just a quick drawing or something.
My sense, even if we satisfied you on that, my sense is you're still gonna be opposed to us because of the side-facing units.
Unless you do
No matter what,
something,
you're
unless
gonna
you
be
do
opposed.
something, put side porches with windows and something that makes.
Well, we talked about that last time, about we actually looked at the wraparound, some of these porches are kind of wrapping around to here, and what the response was, still a side unit.
That was me, and I will be looking at that, and that doesn't.
Yeah, right. So,
Yeah, but in all fairness, we're trying to work with you on it. I mean, that's why I'm asking for these illustrations, because I think it's, the difference between you is you're looking at a balance sheet, we're looking at, the home values, our personal home values, and also the emotional experience. We have a degree of pride in living in Dilworth, and it's for XYZ reasons, and it's all the things we told you tonight. So I wouldn't marginalize so quickly whether or not we would in fact, appreciate those designs. I think we at least deserve the designs.
sure. We will certainly do that, and I think Jill represents DCDA on the
Yeah, we all.
and you all do it certainly, but she's been your point person on some of the stuff, and I think she'll be the first one to tell
All
you.
three of us are on that land use
Yeah.
committee.
And I think we've
Jill.
tried to be as accommodating and open and good dialogue and feedback as much as possible and all that, so. We'll certainly put together some drawings and so forth on the landscaping side. I'm not sure that we'll get there.
I'll work on some better renderings, perspective renderings, where you get more of an angle view versus just a two-dimensional.
For the volume,
face.
yeah.
So when you all bought this property, or
We haven't bought it
did
yet.
the
We're under
option,
contract.
what, yeah, did you let them know what you were gonna put here? Because I got the feeling that they were concerned about the neighborhood.
No, we say that, the owners?
The sellers.
Yeah. So, is this what you all pitched to them, or, like, what?
Well, they've
you all know that?
they've all been notified, and just like you all have.
I know, but I'm saying, when you went in and said, hey, we're interested in this, here's what we wanna do, is this kind of what you represented to them?
Yeah, they knew it'd be multi-family, just like the Weaver property went from multi-family, so they were fully aware of that, all of them were. We haven't heard one
And the
iota
character of
negative
the
feedback or.
street, and trees and all that stuff, you didn't think?
Those tenants are gonna have to.
I will say as well, and not to marginalize your opinions, we understand, we're hearing you, we understand exactly what you're saying. There have been some neighbors that have reached out to us and said they're looking, they like having something there because they think it will enhance in the short term their home values. The fact that those are rental properties now are a challenge.
In all fairness, they're not here.
They are here because they're not against it.
Well, we're not here because we're necessarily against this. We're trying to work with you on the details and just getting a grasp around it. So, I would rather hear it from them directly. If they're here behind the plan, they should be selling the plan alongside you. They didn't show up, so candidly, I don't think they care.
And
Well,
not just
we did
that.
show up. We did show up.
Okay, well, no, and thank you. And then you've introduced.
We did show up.
They expressed their opinion, you guys kind of jumped all over.
I'll say break ground tomorrow.
Yeah, but that's because you're selling this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we did.
I own
No,
the
no,
property.
do you?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
All right, hey, you know what? We can take it
Stop,
offline, you
stop.
guys.
I just asked, I said, do you live there?
No, I have a rent man there.
Okay.
But that should, no, I'm not gonna, I'm
That
sitting
doesn't
here.
matter then, you don't.
It is a
It
transition.
does matter, it's our,
That's a plus
our
of a transition from South Boulevard to Marshall. You're not gonna have the center of Dearworth on Marshall Place because these businesses are always gonna be over here,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so that's the difference. Okay, you're building these properties, you're gonna raise property value for these people, so I see it as a plus.
No, in all fairness, you've introduced some really good stuff, and you do know that. And I hope you understand, we're not picking you guys
So
out.
I've lived there, and I've lived with the backyard of the businesses, so I know what that, living there and dealing with that,
I know.
I mean, it's there, it's
No,
not.
I
It's
completely
not
get
block
that.
inside, so you know what I'm saying? So
I've
it's
got a
not the
1-year-old and a
same value.
2-year-old, and we're not negating the fact that redeveloping some of those houses, will add a lot of probably intangible security, and it's gonna bring a lot of different people, and, that's the reality. Just understand, like, my wife, my 2-year-old, and my 1-year-old live in this development area right now, like, live within a block or two. So, we're not trying to minimize, we're very emotional about this because we moved there for a reason, and it's maybe a nesting element of wanting to watch out for our family. So in all fairness, we get it. My short opinion of I think what you're into here is, I don't know that you're giving it to the best bidder, nor necessarily the highest. So in all fairness, if you look at the trend that's happened in our area, you've got houses that go from $1 to $200,000 lot value to $700,000, $800,000 right across the street from this. So for us, we're simply making the case that they're not necessarily entitled to this. Maybe they're not the highest bidder.
If you think there's a higher bidder, you think they're gonna have less density and
You know what? Weekly is somehow paying their bills, and they have a lower density.
They have
I mean,
much
it's,
higher density.
Much higher properties change, Marshall Place, the back of Marshall Place.
oh, based on
Business.
size. Yeah, that's right.
You're
It's a
never
small.
gonna get-
Per
you're
unit,
never
it's a
gonna
much
get
higher
what you
density.
want.
So,
I mean, in all fairness, I think you'll understand, we look at the weekly project as the transition, right? This right here doesn't necessarily represent the transition. This is what was intended to be single-family homes. So it's not as if it continues the transition. We already have that in place for Ideal Way. There's two properties that Weekly's building, both of which will be gateway entrances into Dilworth. We're just simply looking at, you know, we like what we have, and we're trying to understand why not. And I guess that's the conversation we're having.
Yeah, I mean, to us that live back in here, a line of single-family houses is a much better transition than a 37-unit townhome complex. And we think the Dilworth, land use plan looked at that specific question of whether there should be a transition there, and it said no. That's the purpose of the plan.
well, I will say also though, this is New Bern, which is within the stationary plan of New Bern, and the intention was for that. It's commercial now, and you're actually taking from commercial to multifamily, so you're actually making more essential.
But do that on the.
I really don't think there's any objection to that.
Yeah,
that
there's no-
corner.
Well, but you can't do one without the rest. No one's gonna do anything.
I don't think.
It's a small part that's in the new Bern.
Well, Marshall Place was business at one time.
Yeah. Well, that might have been before the Dilworth
Yeah,
land use plan went into place, that was the
It's
thing.
residential now.
Yeah.
A couple things that, and this one, I don't know if this will carry any weight or not, but a couple things as the city looks at it, and every single city department looks at this. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools looks at it from how many students will be generated by this. If we keep it, the current zoning, the R5, and you build by right there, the R5, and so forth, they assume that 17 students would be generated by this. They assume this project would generate 2 students. So if you just translate that out, based on the type of buyer they would expect to have, the type of residents, young families, not school-aged families.
That makes sense.
So wait, I'm trying to understand. So
You're coming here to start families, and now you're saying
But the
you're not
families-
generating kids.
So, you know what?
Families are not gonna go to school for 5 to 7 years.
Here's the thing, from about,
That's a CMS.
in all fairness, I mean,
That's not a good argument.
I think that's a sore spot, because I'll hope you understand, a recent barbecue that we had on the block, there was probably 17 kids lined up on the fence. We love children. That's what we're trying to, continue to do, is have families that are looking to have children. So if you're telling us that this right here is gonna have a bunch of kids fresh out of college without any children, that's not what we're,
homes with 2 kids.
that's not what we're asking for.
No, the point
I
is,
mean, what's the
when
point
you're
if
not-
Dilworth has families in it?
When you've got the higher numbers of people, the higher generation of people, you have more cars, more traffic, and all that. The other thing that CDOT did an analysis of, this does not increase traffic, this would decrease traffic based on if you build this out per this versus what you could build by right in the current zoning.
Wait a second, 1.5 cars by 37? We'd need to see that. I mean, 37 times 1.5 is a lot more cars than what we would have there.
You'd have to take it up with CDOT. That's their trip generation based on single family versus townhouses.
And that was conducted since we met.
I missed that.
But it's not, you've got more, they assume with single family, you've got more people coming in and out, you've got more people coming in, dropping off, you've got more cars per household. It's just more for a single family than it is for a townhouse.
Well, if that's valid, then
Plus the fact
it could
is
be a
you've got-
positive.
This could have been, and there's still discussion about it from the city of, this could have, gone TOD. If it goes TOD, they actually limit the amount of parking they want to have for residents because they want people to start using it.
Well, no, first of all, they limit what is street facing. I went to the TOD meeting. A lot of the intention behind TOD is to have it not visible, so it would go underground. So it's not necessarily.
There's actually a limit to how much parking.
Agreed, but now we're making a presumption that this is a better zoning solution to another zoning that hasn't even been, there hasn't even been a
I
petition.
think we're just providing other sides of your argument that this should stay single, or everyone's argument, this should stay single family detached.
Just remember,
The
we're
reality
single-family
of the whole
homeowners,
transition.
we're not professionals in the planning space. I think we lean to other experts in the area. We're purely comparing to what we have as an option now relative to what you're proposing, and I think everything else is noise.
And so what I'm hearing is that you're okay with it staying as it is for many years?
Rather than CMS, yes.
Not many years.
Yes.
Not many years. I mean, in reality, okay, we have 2 houses across the street from this that are now $700,000 on that corner. In the midpoint right there, we have another that is listed roughly $700,000. You know,
It's turning.
we're not the professionals, but we're just looking at the trend. I don't want to speak for the fact that maybe it will continue happening. Who knows? It's the trend. I mean, in reality, we're just looking at it as, you know, the city has plans in place, and so we're conceding on a lot of those plans. We just want to know why.
I mean, I think a single family, you know, with a nice brick fence on the Euclid side, I mean, I think that'd be perfectly fine for a single family.
Yeah, there's no reason you couldn't.
I mean,
build
there hasn't been
big
a willing
brick
seller,
wall.
you know, he hasn't been on the market, but,
Yeah.
you know, apparently he's interested in the market now, so.
So we're back with what? We're back to awkward.
Anything else?
Well, I mean, this is, the purpose of this meeting is for you to ask questions, for Pulte to tell you what their plan is, to get feedback as we've gotten. The difference, and the way we've done this a little bit, is we sat down with DCDA, I think twice before we even filed the rezoning to try to get some input, which we did incorporate, and then we've had another revision since then.
What is
True,
the
but
DCDA stance?
well, we have consistently discussed and said that we are opposed to the non.
The side, you have,
Yeah,
yep,
we have been totally
you're
consistent.
you're absolutely right.
So it sounds like you said you sat down with them and they told you this.
And they've now,
Here we are.
Well, I guess the point is, we didn't just do whatever we wanted to do without any even consultation, we just did it without any discussion.
well, I mean, in all fairness, we looked to DCDA and the Dilworth plan use that they put in place, and we also appreciate their involvement with this. So I think they were involved with the weekly project. You know, they looked out for a lot of the interest in the neighborhood. It went through a lot of revisions, and we benefited from that. So hopefully you'll continue that discussion with them.
Well, I will say, I know that you don't like the side view, we just couldn't make it work. If we flip them all like you're saying, you can't get 2 rows of townhouses. You're saying do 1 row of townhouses, that doesn't work for any kind of development like this, and somebody's gonna be looking at somebody's backyard.
Yeah.
If it doesn't fit, then don't develop.
I mean,
You
it's
can't make it so
37.
it works with the neighborhood, then it's not worth developing.
Is 37 the magic number that makes it work financially? And-
Well, again, if you took out 3 units, it's still not gonna help you in the side facing.
Would you,
Why? I
at
don't
any
understand
point,
that.
consider
If you
not
say-
side
If you
facing?
take these units and you flip them,
Right?
At any point,
just
would you
don't have
consider
the
non-side
depth
facing?
to get
It
the
won't
townhouse,
work.
the alley,
Doesn't
you know,
work.
2 townhouses back to back.
Front facing, those are front facing up there, if it took those 3 out.
I mean, we were able to go back to back here because we have a lot more space. I mean, trust me, we would love to be able to do the whole way this way, but it just doesn't fit. Doesn't fit with the constraints of the
So can you sleep at night knowing that this is a project? I'm not trying to be funny, if you lived across where I live, 2429 Marshall Place, in a $650,000 home that we renovated, we lived there for 3 years, renovated, put in our time, we have 2 young children, and this is coming across the street. Tell me what you would do as fathers and as husbands. Could you sleep at night knowing that this is going across the street?
That my value of my home
I
was
didn't ask you.
Wasn't you, not your home.
I mean,
You're
my opinion,
selling,
my opinion.
especially with one street parking right across the street.
Yeah,
We're
well,
talking
my
to
opinion, you're not
developers.
gonna care what it is or not, but I would like, because it's a huge drastic change from what's there right now.
So you
An
would like
improvement.
this if
So
you
I would
have
like
2
it,
small
but
kids that
Again,
run
you're gonna just look at me
around
and say, I
on
have
the
4 small
street.
kids. So you would look at me and say, you're lying because you work for Pulte, but if you want my honest opinion, I would appreciate the redevelopment of that
And you
area.
would want that on-street parking right across the street where your 4 little kids could
Right.
get hit by cars coming in parking.
Well,
That's
on-street
where
parking-
you're
I think we're
gonna be at.
all on the same
Every
page.
study done on on-street parking actually slows down traffic, so.
But the traffic's not fast right now, I mean,
But
that's,
again, where are the people gonna come from? Are they
There's
coming
no
from the
connection.
units, or are they gonna be coming
There's no
from
connection of this
Max
community on
and
the
the
Marshall
bars?
Place.
Exactly.
If you wanted my opinion, I gave it to you, that's my opinion, that's how I would feel personally,
Traffic
not as
wise.
a builder.
traffic-wise, to me, the number of cars is a factor, I mean, speed is really not a problem now, and I wouldn't think it would be in the
Now,
future.
we did
but
hear that.
You double the number of
in the
cars.
last
Well,
meeting, we
after
heard that
there
Atherton
is
goes
a-
pretty quick.
there's a
Yeah,
speed problem.
we do
Now,
need speed humps.
Pulte doesn't benefit from having on-street parking. It's something that planning is encouraged, it's something the Dilworth plan is encouraged. So the on-street parking is there to try to satisfy some of the previous concerns.
Good question. So when you guys were building in 2008,
I assume you guys probably had to put the brakes on some projects. What was your, kind of your backup plan for that? Did you throw in it, I mean, like, just to appease, local residents? Did you plant grass over?
No, we're
plant-
required to stabilize the lot, as I said earlier.
Well, I'm
way
saying
back.
financially, if you have to pull out, I mean.
It doesn't matter, you still have to have it stabilized for erosion control.
Okay,
And
so
the city
it
will
will be
fine you and continue to fine you, so will the
Grass
city.
or-
It's grass.
Paths.
So seeded grass. You're
So
required
grass
to-
with the cement pads.
I'm sorry?
Grass and the
the
cement pads.
We would not start
pads.
cement pads, I don't understand.
Streets, grass and streets.
These would be in.
Yeah.
That's
Say-
exactly what I'm talking
Let's say we develop it and the world went to
Right.
the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would be here, there'd be grass here, here, this would be here, grass would be here, grass would be there.
What about utilities? Do you have the utilities in place?
Yeah, the utilities
They
would
would
be
go
in
at the
place.
same time. Now, in fairness, I'm not with Pulte, we're with the engineer firm to design it. We took a piece of property, we tried to fit everything in there on this piece of property. They had some challenging layouts to it and tried to accommodate the input we best we could. I will say this though about Pulte, they build good product. They are probably one of, if not the biggest home builder in Charlotte. And because they build a nice product, they build single family and townhouse developments.
This is the first Pulte townhome development in Charlotte, correct?
No, sir.
I thought that's what was brought
Oh
up.
my goodness,
last-
Valentine Village, we did that, Baxter, Park South Station, Archer Hill Villages. We've done.
Is there anything inside 485?
Inside 485
Inside
townhomes,
485.
Park South Station. This is definitely in progress now. We went into the defunct Ryan community and have been very successful there.
Yeah, those are all high-end areas, correct?
I'm sorry?
Those are all high-end areas that you built up.
It's a really good area. It's a
They're
different
high-end.
community. It's a very high-density
Yeah.
community.
High-end.
We're in Darlington Wendover with a townhome product that we've detaxed. So we're definitely doing a lot of townhomes. And we've done a lot of townhomes.
So what happens next? You guys report back to the city planning department?
Right. We will report back on today's meeting, who attended, and we'll give them a copy of the sign-in sheet, all those kinds of things, and then there will be a public hearing mid-July.
And will you characterize the city planning department, there is disagreement on the side facing and,
Well, we will talk, there's a community report. I don't think they put a lot of stock into what is said or not said in that meeting, because you still have another opportunity to come and speak. You all have a chance to speak at the planning commission.
We will.
Or not, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, the city council, it's the city council, public council.
Yeah, not the planning commission, the city
Right.
council.
Hey guys, thanks. Society, these are never the easiest meetings, so I really do appreciate it. I mean, this is, thank goodness for the process.
What's your name?